Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CKC channel. I'm your host, Fire Master Calvin Klaassen, and welcome to another episode of Reflections. So, we've been having a very interesting season too. I'm excited. I'm learning about more and more of our country's history, a lot of SA history, a bit of other countries as well. But yeah, I'm always excited to learn more about these legends in their own right. So this evening we have another special guest, a former SA champion, and I will allow Dr. Bouah to introduce him properly. If you are watching for the first time, just make sure that you press the follow button. So I think you should sign up first. It's for free. It's quick and easy. Just sign up quickly, get back to the channel, press the follow button, and that will enable the chat. And then you can ask us questions live. Make sure to throw your questions in early. First come, first serve, guys. So without further ado, let's switch over to the library over there. And over to you, Dr. Bouah.
Thank you very much, Calvin, and good evening, viewers. Great to be back. I had a work function last week and I couldn't make it, but I'm glad to be back tonight again in full flow. And tonight we've got a special guest. He's all the way from Austria. He's a former South African champion, Gordon Meyer. I had the privilege of playing in 2 SA Closed with Gordon, and we competed there. And then we also played together at the SA Open in 1997 here in Cape Town at the Korestinsky High School, which Gordon in fact won as well. Gordon also was a world junior coach for South Africa in 1998, and we're going to explore some of those things. Currently, Gordon is staying in Austria after having originally moved to the UK, and he'll be telling us a bit about chess in the UK as well as chess in Austria and what it does. Gordon, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Reflections show, where we introduce South African chess legends to the public. Gordon, over to you.
Hi, Lynn. Hi, Calvin. It's great to be here. I feel honored to be invited. I think you guys are doing a great job.
No, thank you very much.
It's good
Gordon.
to be here.
Gordon, how did it all start? Because, to become South African champion, to become a coach, and all of those things normally take some time and years of experience. So how did it all start for you? Who taught you chess?
Well, yeah, my father actually used to play chess. I was born actually in Thornton, Cape Town. And my father used to play for, I think, Goodwood Chess Club.
Right.
In like the early 60s or so, like that. And I was born late 68. And if you can remember, obviously, well, you wouldn't remember because you're a bit young. But at that time, Bobby Fischer 72 was obviously the world championship match. Yep. It was like headlines around the world, etc. So my father took a keen interest. And so he taught me. I remember like being taught at about the age of 5 or 6, like how to move the pieces or so. And then he gave me this big book of Bobby Fischer's games, and so it kind of started from there. And I mean, my father never became like a really strong player. He was maybe 1500 or 1600 rating, more or less. But my parents were very keen on my chess. I just took to it like, duck to water. I just wanted to learn, and so I played a lot of junior tournaments, and eventually played SA primary school. Played for Transvaal in those days, became Gauteng. So I played SA primary schools, and I just took it from there.
And Gordon, tell me, you moved to Gauteng at an early age, so most of your primary and high school was in Gauteng.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we were just about 6 years old when we moved to Joburg. My father changed jobs, and so yeah, I came under the spell. I don't know if you've heard of Michael and Kevin O'Sullivan.
The Sullivan brothers, yep.
The Sullivan twins, identical twins. And somehow I ended up being coached by them from a fairly young age, like late 70s or something. So yeah, there were actually a group of us at that time. I remember like Stephen Hershowitz was a top young player those days. Myself was Harry Joffe, and there were a group of players that were taken under the wing by the O'Sullivans.
Okay. And Gordon, in about 1980, you would have been about 12. So, I mean, that's normally the time that most of the chess players sort of start, you know, in terms of playing great proper tournament chess. How was chess in the 80s? I mean, I remember there was Twins tournament, there was a Swimline tournament, lots of SA Opens. Tell us a bit about chess in the 80s for you.
Yeah, I think chess thrived in the late 70s, early 80s. At least, you know, obviously there was a divide. We didn't know much. I didn't even know that there was a SACOS, to be fair. But from in the South African Chess Federation, in those days, I mean, at 1980, I played SA primary schools. I was in standard 4 when I won, and in 1981, I won in standard 5 again. The SA Open 1980 was a classic SA Open. I remember in PE, I think it was, and it was quite good. The SA Open always coincided with the Wimbledon final.
Okay.
And I remember everyone watching the classic Borg-McEnroe final. People were making their move, and then they would run into the TV room, watch some points, and run back again. Yeah, it was good memories. I think it was probably my first SA Open, actually, 1980. But yeah, there was some really good up and coming players at that time. I mean, Donald McFarlane was obviously just starting to come into his prime at that time. Mark Rubery, you know, I really looked up to these strong players, because you know, at that time, yes, I'd won SA primary schools a couple of times, but I think, you know, I don't think I was much stronger than an 1800, 1800 at that time. I mean, certainly. So when I looked up to those guys, you know, like 2200s and stuff, you know, like that's where I wanted to go. That's where I wanted to be. But also, I mean, actually, Mark Rubery coached me. I remember in 1980, he coached me in a crucial line against Steven Hershowitz. Steven Hershowitz was the favorite. He was a really top junior, like brilliant. At the age of 10 or 11, he was destined for greatness as far as his chess ability was concerned. And he was a big favorite in the 1980 tournament, I remember. And I played him in the last round. I had to win. And he was half a point ahead of me. He had 6 out of 6. I had 5.5.
Right.
And Mark Rubery coached me in a particular line against the French defense. I remember that. It was an obscure line, like E4, E6, knight F3, D5, knight C3. You know, you don't play D4. And I won that game. It was actually a very nice game. And I mean, Steven was very upset, but yeah, it was my first proper big victory. It was 1980.
Now, in fact, Gordon, just to tell you that if I'm not mistaken, Charles de Villiers actually showed a game from that SA Open of 1980. I don't know if you're familiar with the game de Villiers versus Kromhout, and played at that tournament. And Charles de Villiers' winning move was Bishop F6 check, getting Ewan into a double mate threat that he couldn't. So it looks like Calvin will have to look at some of those games from that 1980 event, in that regard. Who were the top players at that stage? I mean, de Villiers, Piet Kruin, and those guys?
Yeah, well, you had the players from the Cape where I remember with de Villiers and Friedgoed, I think, had actually left South Africa by that time. But there was a guy, David Walker was there.
David Walker.
Piet Kruin, obviously. And then Donald McFarlane.
Right.
But Donald was still young in very early 80s, but by the time 83, 84 came along, you know, he was excellent. And then in Johannesburg, we had Mark Rubery was cleaning up and winning all tournaments, left, right, and center. But we had Frank Korestinsky. Frank was a very interesting guy. I got on very well with Frank, especially in later years. He was from the Czech Republic. It was Czechoslovakia in those days, and he kind of, let's say, escaped to South Africa. But he was a great character, but also a very strong, imaginative, creative player. And he was one of the top players at that time. Then you had Yaddia Sullivan twins. So Carl Hersky, Yeah, no, there were a good bunch of guys. No one was like head and shoulders above everyone else, right? We didn't
Okay.
have like a clear 2,500.
Right.
But if you had to ask me in those days who were the best players, the people that would have been destined for grandmasterhood, let's say, if we weren't banned and weren't were allowed to play internationally, I would probably say Mark and Donald were the two I would have put money on. There was also another guy. There was a guy. He was a bit older than us, and he kind of was in and out of chess. A guy called Roger Shakis.
Yeah, I know his name as well. Yeah.
They a lot of players around that time said Roger Shakis would have been a grandmaster, but he he put chess to the side. He became a doctor, and I know he was at Baragwanath Hospital for a long time. Yeah, so.
Okay, I must maybe try to get a hold of him. Mark, Gordon, it seems Mark Levitt, David Gluckman came up in the 80s as well.
That's right, yeah.
And did you play against them?
Yeah, for sure. So Jonathan Gluckman was more or less my age, David's brother. David was a couple of years older, but 3 years older, and Mark Levitt as well. They were just a little bit like the next couple of years ahead. They were more than Donald McFarlane category.
Sure.
And Clyde Walpe. And so David, I would say, David became strong. Like in the 80s, I would say up until 84, 85, he was like kind of an average kind of player. And then late 80s, suddenly he accelerated, right? And I think almost he didn't stop. He became an IM.
Became an IM in 92.
Yeah, so David picked up really well, actually. And Mark Levitt kind of has been a steady good player, right? Mm-hmm. He was kind of always there or thereabouts. And I know he won a few SA Opens. Yeah. There were some great clashes between the Marks, Mark Rubery, Mark Levitt. They had some really good, fights over the board. They're very good friends, but over the board, it was really good games. Yeah.
And it seems there was a SA Open involving Plaskett that seemed to have been quite an interesting tournament. Gordon, what's your recollection of that event with Plaskett?
Well, the 1990 SA Open was probably one of my best tournaments, I'd say. It was interesting. Okay, Plaskett came. There was a lot of controversy because, South Africa was banned. For good reason, and him coming to play was quite a controversial thing at the time, I remember. And he had just won the British Championship. No, it wasn't that he was coming off the back of nothing. He actually had just won the British Championships. He was kind of at his peak almost in at the 90s. He came out, and for us, it was a great opportunity, right? We had James Plaskett on board one to play. And I was lucky enough to play him in the 5th round. I had 4 out of 4, and he had 4 out of 4. I played him in the 5th round. And I remember that game. I've actually got it as one of the games we might be able to look at, but it's quite a funny thing because it was the day of the Wimbledon final. I mentioned that on the 1980, but 1990 is also the day of the Wimbledon final, and Becker was playing Edberg.
Okay.
And I always loved watching the Wimbledon, right? Wimbledon
of course.
And I had to play Plaskett on this day. He didn't seem to care about the tennis, but I did. And I was like, oh well, I'm playing a grandmaster. I'm probably, I'm going to have time to go and watch the tennis. That's cool. I wasn't expecting too much, but my style of play is quite aggressive. I always like to give my opponents challenges, right? It doesn't matter what rating they are. In fact, the stronger they are, the more I like to challenge them.
Yeah.
And so in this particular game, I played fairly aggressively against him. He made one mistake and took him down. He was I must admit, he wasn't very happy.
Of course, losing yet to a South African unknown to him.
An unknown South African
champion at the time.
Yeah, it was. And the funny thing was he refused to move off board one. So
Oh.
for the next round, I had to play on board 2, and he stayed on board 1, even though I had 5 out of 5. I remember the next 2 rounds, though. I lost the next 2 rounds. So I lost to Mark Rubery, and then followed by David Luckman. It was like a 1-2 sucker punch, right?
Yeah, but I suppose, I mean, for you, the tournament was beating that GM. Was that your first time you played a Grandmaster in that tournament?
Actually, I played a Grandmaster in 1989 SA Closed. I played Miguel Quinteros, and I drew against him.
Oh yes, okay. That was a good draw against Quinteros.
It was a nice game. Yeah, it was a good game. He offered me a draw, and I thought, yeah, it was better for me. Clearly, otherwise he wouldn't have offered me a draw. But it wasn't so clear that it was, it was completely one for me. And I had little time, so I did take the draw. But against Plaskett, I didn't look back. I didn't didn't look at any offers of draws. I just wanted to.
No, I'm sure we'll look forward to that. So, Gordon, the first time that you and I met was, in my view, actually at the 1994 SA Trials at Pentec. Can you recall? That trials we played there at Pentec, and your experience of it?
I have vague memories, mainly because I don't think I played very well. I remember, I'm sure I lost to you.
Yeah. You lost to me in the 94 one.
I think I've lost to you twice. I think I lost to you also in the SA Closed. Was it in 98?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I know that tournament in the Cape was an interesting experience for me, because I was kind of, going from Joburg down on my own down to Cape Town. I was staying with a friend. I kind of got a lift with Howard Goldberg in his Jeep, every day to the tournament and stuff. It was fairly chaotic, the tournament, but quite good fun.
Yeah.
I think was it Arthur Kobisi who organized it and ran it?
Yep. Arthur was in fact the TD there at the event as well. But it was the first time, I mean, in fact, it was the second time, because 93, there was also SA Trials, which Michailakis won. And then, of course, the 94 was the second time. So a lot of the players are still new to one another. What were your general impressions? I mean, it was for many players, first time Bouah, first time Maxwell Solomon.
It's the first time I'd met also Dion Solomons.
Yeah.
Because we'd heard about Dion, and we'd heard about Shabir Bouah. But as I say, we didn't know much about the Sackles players, and so we hadn't had much of a chance to play them.
Yeah.
So it was actually a nice opportunity for me to play Dion for the first time. It actually was a very, very nice game. I sacrificed a pawn in the middle game for a positional advantage, and unfortunately, I missed a combination at the end, and I lost that game, which was quite crucial, because him and Charles, I think, were vying for the title.
Right.
But it was also Daniel Baloyi was there.
And it was also in Landle from Gauteng as well. But it was an interesting mixture of players, and of course those were the early years as well. But I think I want to take us to Korestinsky of 97. I mean, Gordon, and I mean, you won that SA Open there. It was a big SA Open in my view. And what was your score? 9.5, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
9.5 out of 11, yeah.
9.5 out of 11. Gordon, take us through that 97 SA Open that was at Korestinsky.
Well, it was. I was one of the very few players from Gauteng. I remember that. I was very surprised how many players there were, though. There were probably more than 300 players. There were a lot of juniors playing. Some old faces. Like yours, I recognized your face. I remember that. And obviously Charles. I played Charles. I don't. Obviously I was hoping to do well. I don't think I was necessarily expecting to win it or anything. But as the tournament went on, I think I just had a very good start. I remember in round 4, I played a young guy called Damien Tom. I think his surname is Thom.
Thom, yeah, that's right.
And I played an aggressive line against the English attack. You know, Sicilian English attack with bishop e3, where you play knight g4, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, g5 line, right?
Sure.
That line is the first time I'd kind of played it, and I hadn't prepared much. I was kind of playing it by ear, and then at the midpoint of that game, I found I think a very, very nice idea where you can play a knight or bishop to c4. Normally, you feel like you should play a knight to c4, and if he goes bishop takes c4, you go bishop takes c4, and you've got two bishops like against bishop and knight, and that's fine. But actually, I found the idea. It took me a long time to find the idea of bishop c4 instead, and swap off the white squared bishop, and have the knight on c4. Even though you're giving away his weak bishop, if you like, because it's blocked by the g2, f3, e4 pawns.
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm going too fast for. I'm sure we could understand
No,
all
of course, the pawn complex on that diagonal there.
And once I'd found that positional concept, like my position just fell into place. I mean, he wasn't an extremely high-rated player, but he played actually quite well. I was impressed with
him. Player. No, we know about
very competent. And I won that game, and suddenly I felt good. I felt like actually, I'm playing all right here. And then I think I beat Dave and Dean. I think I beat, and I did lose one game. I lost to Antonio Bravetti. I remember that.
Now, always Bravetti is. In fact, I never beat Antonio in the 10 years that we played against one another. 3 draws. So, very strong player, Antonio.
But the crucial games were obviously against Charles de Villiers, where I won a nice game. And then the last game was against, what is that chap's name? Levine. Levine, yeah.
Yeah, Levine from Cape Town, yeah.
Yeah, he was from Cape Town. So he had, and it was the last round, and he had I think he had an outside chance of catching up or something like that. So he had all the support behind him, right? He had spectators.
Of course.
So I actually felt sorry for him when I did beat him. I was favored to beat him. I was high rated.
Yeah, you were high rated there.
Like the guys, they were really disappointed for him. But I'm sorry, Benny, if you're watching.
But Gordon, well done on that victory. One of the things that I actually recall about the '97 tournament, I don't know if you remember this, but Mr. Andre van der Weenen was the tournament director, and he started every round with a giant clock. On stage there, so he had a clock, wooden one, and he started there. So that was sort of one of my memories of that one. Gordon, but well done on that. It was a great victory. A tough crowd, yet you were playing in, and you were playing in hostile territory.
Away from home.
And there you go. So well done on that one. Gordon, in '98, you became a coach for the SA team. Going to Spain. Calvin, maybe we can put that photo on, and then maybe Gordon, you can tell us a bit about the '98 World Youth and your recollections of it.
Yeah, no, that was a great memory actually. To be picked to coach the World Juniors, because I'd done a lot of coaching in the '90s. I'd coached, for example, Daniel Caudry was my pupil from a young age, like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And Nick van der Nat and these guys. So I was quite known in the coaching circles, and to be picked for South Africa was amazing, and to get my colors. So we went to Spain. We had a good team. Daniel Caudry was our top player, but the ladies, we had your lovely wife, Lyndon, Denise. She was part of the team. We had quite a close-knit team, and we had a lot of support, good support from the parents that came along. It was good fun. I enjoyed it. There's some good stories from that time.
Now, Gordon, I've sent you the picture. I've sent you the picture on your phone, and Calvin has also just put it up for the viewers to have a look at. Maybe you can just tell us what you recognize from that photograph. Calvin, can you put it on again?
All right, let me have a look at this. Oh wow, okay. Oh yeah, that's Denise. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So, it was a great venue actually. In a hotel, hotel in Spain, great weather. And so what I used to do each morning basically is go through everybody's games. It didn't matter how good or bad everyone, we used to just make sure we go through everybody's games, give everyone a chance to have their say. And then, not force. As I say, I did a lot of coaching, but I never really forced my opinion on like how one should play, right? It was more you see the kind of personality the person is, whether they, whether a more defensive setup works for them or whatever. You have to read the players. You can't just say, oh, you need to sacrifice everything, or
got to understand the players and their personalities.
You got to understand the players, but it was really good fun. I mean, they actually picked me to be the world coach again the year after, but that's when I left I left South Africa and went to the UK. So I said, no, I can't realistically, I can't be the coach, and I'm not even in the same country, right? So
no, understandable. Gordon, thank you very much for those memories, but I've still got a few questions, but let's go over back to Calvin and let's just see if there are any questions in the chat box before we continue. Calvin, over to you.
Okay, guys, so right now there's not questions yet, so please do get them rolling in, guys. We always wait. There's something pops up. Let's just see what Dr. Queenie says. It was great to be coached by Gordon in Spain, 1998. First time I encountered a national coach. Gordon treated us with such respect. I learned a lot. That's from Dr. Queenie. Of course, we all know who she is. And thanks for that statement, Dr. Queenie. And again, guys, I'm just urging you to throw your questions in early. We tend to leave it till later on in the show. So if you do have questions, throw them in the chat, and then we'll attend to them a bit later. So over to you, London.
Thanks, Calvin. Gordon, tell us a bit about chess in England. I mean, you've played in England and the Four Nations League, because it's not something that we generally read too much about unless you follow the English chess magazines. But who did you play for, and how did you find the Four Nations League?
Yeah, so I was lucky to be invited to play. The first club I joined in the UK was a club called Red Hill Chess Club. And they were fairly well connected. So when we played sort of local leagues, there were one or two people that said, well, do you want to come play in the Four Nations Chess League? And the Four Nations Chess League is really an experience if you can get to play it. It's where all the players from basically around the UK come to one venue. So you see all the top grandmasters are there, Michael Adams, etc. They all there, and the teams I played for two teams. I played once for a few years for a team called Richmond, and then I played for Guildford. And Guildford was really good experience because they were one of the top teams. So when I got to play for Guildford 1 a couple of times, and mainly I played for Guildford 2, because in Guildford 1 you had Nigel Short, you had Stuart Conquest, you had Daniel King, you had Kostic, you had sort of top players. And when I remember I did play for Guildford 1 once against one of the top female players in the UK, a lady called Harriet Hunt, who's 2450 or she's a top player in her own right. But the thing I remember about that really special, that game or that match, was we played a team called Wood Green.
Yes.
And on top board was Michael Adams. So to play in a team against Michael Adams, that was really awesome. And to watch how Michael Adams took Stuart Conquest apart was amazing. Like so easily, I'm sure Stuart wouldn't say that, but it was impressive. It's a great experience. And then afterwards you go out for a meal. It's it's kind of all paid for, and you get a chance to chat with Daniel King, for example. I had a good chat with him, and all of these players. It's a very friendly atmosphere. Get to meet Gawain Jones and David Howell, and these kind of guys. Actually, one tournament I played in, I did really well. Was a speed blitz tournament.
Okay.
And it was 15 seconds for the game. And you each had 15 seconds on the clock. So when your time ran down, his ran up. So he always had 30 seconds. It was like an hourglass clock.
Okay.
And they advertised this. It was a lot of money. It was like £3,000 or something on in this tournament. And they advertised it as the new chess, right? You know, like they always come after these things, but okay, it only lasted one event. And it was, so a lot of top players came in. It was full of grandmasters. Hal, Gawain Jones played, Keith Arkell was there, Danny Gormali, full of grandmasters, lots of IMs, of course. And we played in groups, and in like the top 3 in each group qualified for the next, like the knockout phase. And I did well enough in my group to get into the last 32, and then you play each other black and white. And I won. I was just moving really, really fast, and I won my game. Got to the last 16, and then I got through to the last 8. Great. So there was this unknown South African guy with David Howell, Gawain Jones, Keith Arkell was still in there. Gormali had been knocked out, and I ended up playing. What's that IM's name? He's the coach of Caruana, or the manager of Caruana. Lawrence Trent. Yeah. So I'm playing Lawrence Trent, right? So there's only 8 boards left, and there's a big crowd around us. Where they've moved all the tables together, and we're playing like this. And the game is so fast. I mean, it's terrible chess, 15 seconds, right? it's like playing bullet chess, but with real pieces.
Moving. Yeah.
And every time he took a piece, he was panicking. He was throwing the pieces into the crowd, and the people were ducking. And so it was a great experience. But yeah, okay, I lost to him in the end. But in the end, David Howell played Gawain Jones in the final, and Howell won. So it was a good, just really, really strange experience. But it was nice to be the unknown person out of this group.
No, I mean, it's a good experience. And would you say that your chess you picked up in strength, understanding, or rating points when you played in the 4 Nations?
Certainly, my rating went up. Simply because you get a chance to play, right? That's the problem in South Africa. You've got some really strong players, but they can't go higher because they're playing people of the same rating.
Yeah.
So my rating went up. I think my strength. I think I definitely became a stronger player in the UK. I mean, one always feels one gets stronger, right?
Yes.
I'm 50. I'm over 50 years old now, right? But I still feel I still feel I'm learning and getting better in some respects, but probably in real life I'm not. But at least if I believe I am, that's a good thing.
Yes, of course, you must have to believe.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I felt like I was progressing, and the other thing about my chess is I was on and off with chess, right? I was never a great person for like studying deeply, like deep openings or so. I did go in certain variations quite deeply, but I was never like a major theorist. Probably one of the weaknesses of my game is some like opening theory, offbeat variations, you could say.
Yeah.
But at times I did take, when I did take it seriously, then I did progress. So I think it was great. A great experience. Yeah.
It definitely looks like I mean you improved tremendously, and also, as you said, probably rating and understanding. Gordon, I must say that I mean I met up with you in 2002 when you came to visit the South African team in Slovenia in Bled, and I know that you're very fond of Olympiads. Tell us a bit about your experience of Olympiads.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I never got a chance to play as one of the players, but I was an ardent supporter of the South African team. So I first went to Istanbul in 2000 to just for a few days, and I never forget. I think it was Kenny Solomon's face when he saw me walking. He walked past where I was sitting, and it's like, that's Gordon Meyer. It was like, what are you doing here? And so so I joined, and I gave them a lot of moral support. I even shared some meals with them. They got me in, with the press badges and stuff. So Istanbul, 2000. Then it was Slovenia, 2002. Then in Calvia in Spain, 2004. Then Turin, 2006, and Dresden, 2008. I was there every time. So they're becoming used to like, when's Gordon going to arrive? You know,
but Gordon, I mean, those things are important. I mean, the players love it when you've got, I mean, an ardent fan like yourself, and obviously a former SA champion. So it's great, and hopefully we'll see you in Russia next year.
No, if there's an opportunity to play for South Africa as an over 50, then maybe.
Well, in fact, South Africa sent their first team 3 years ago in 2018. Shabir Bouah board 1, and Mark Lewis board 2, and Dion Pick and Andrew Saudi and Cecil Olsen. So, and then a second team went in 2020, actually, that went to the Czech Republic. So South Africa has now, hopefully in 2022, there should be a SA Closed coming up this year, and maybe you should think about coming to play in the SA Closed, because there's actually an over 50 section now, Gordon. So the first 5 qualify for the Protea team. So maybe that's something that you could think about in your schedule.
I can think about it, yeah. When you visit South Africa, time it with the SA Closed. I checked last week. I'm actually the highest rated active South African. I'm the highest rated over 50 South African active players.
Well, I think it's a great start. And in fact, Gordon, maybe because you know, the interesting thing about the SA over 50s, Maxwell Solomon is the current champion, and we're waiting for David, Charles, and Kromo to make their debut in the SA Close over 50 as well. But of course, they all want to play in the main section.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah. I'd probably also want to play in the main section.
Now, Gordon, tell us a bit about you playing in Austria now, and you're playing in the Austrian league. How does it differ from the English league?
Yeah, so I play for a club called Schachverein Steyreg, which is so Steyreg is kind of a small town outside of Linz, but a very active chess club. One of the most active around, really, really good guys. And our team has gone up from sort of a provincial qualification where we want to go to the Bundesliga. So, like in Germany, they have this thing called Bundesliga, and I play in the second Bundesliga. But it's still a very strong tournament. And actually, 2 weeks ago, I played in Graz in Austria over the board.
Right.
It was all very. You had to have tests before, etc. Everyone had to have their COVID tests and play with masks on. And I played a grandmaster. I played Daniela Milanovic on the Sunday, and great experience, great game actually, long game. And I lost it in the end. I had a good chance for equality, but it's quite well organized. In chess in Austria, I would say is kind of thriving. They've got a lot of good grandmasters, good young players. I mean, Marcus Raga is 2680. He was over 2700 at one stage, and I see him a lot. Right, so he's at the Bundesliga where I play. He plays. And we also play Blitz at the end of the Bundesliga. On the final day of the Bundesliga, there's a Blitz tournament, team Blitz tournament. And then you got Nisipianu playing, you got Raga, you got top GMs. Richie Rapport is playing. So there's an off chance of getting to play one of these guys in a Blitz game too. So it's a good experience, and it's really solid chess. It's doing well in Austria. I haven't played a lot of tournaments. I'm just playing more league, but I did play in the Vienna Open in 2019, which was an amazing experience. I actually bumped into a couple of South Africans that I didn't know they were coming across. Borna Klaver played. It was great to see him. And I had a decent tournament actually. It was my first long classic tournament I played in a long time, and actually I was quite happy with my results. So.
No, we can only but wish you well in that Austrian club. Gordon, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I mean, one of South Africa's greatest victories in the 2016 Olympiad was actually against Austria.
Yes, and, I know. I had I was supporting South Africa, of course, in that match.
Good.
And Daniel Cordry played one of the best games South African has ever played, in my opinion, against David Shengalia.
Yep.
It was a fantastic game.
Yeah.
And what an amazing result! I mean, a huge upset. It was a huge upset. That was.
No, it was. You know, I mean, I also when we chatted with Daniel on the show earlier this year, and somebody actually asked me also in last year, I actually nominated that as one of the best games that I actually seen at the Olympiad, because, like you, I'm also quite fond of the Olympiads, and I've been fortunate to go to 8 Olympiads and watch all the games that South Africans play, and that game that Daniel played was just spectacular in the sense of leaving the bishop on d7 and just going forward with knight c4 as well.
I like to think that Daniel did, coaching him from a young age gave him some impetus in the style of play that he plays.
I'm sure, Gordon, that would have rubbed off on him as well. Gordon, so I'm glad that you still have those aspirations to play for South Africa and for the senior Proteas, hopefully one day. And who knows, you know, anything is possible, because I do think that it's an event where, you know, Shabir was telling us last week that at the event there you had he was having a breakfast with Shefnikov, you know, and
right, yeah.
then on the next there was Yuri Geller, you know. So I mean, you have all these legends that are playing for their respective countries, and I mean, we can only but also strive to play. So Gordon, do note that I'm hoping to hear. Maybe there is a essay closed later this year, but certainly we should be sending a team to that one. Gordon, it's 7:43 now, and I'd like to see some of your games.
Okay.
Calvin, over to you. What are we going to look at some of the games now, Calvin?
Okay, I'm back. We've got a couple of questions in the chat, so if
do the
you guys
custom
will
questions.
allow me that. And then, yeah, when we get to the chessboard, I'll just have to do a bit of fixing, swap you guys, because Lyndon, you did a shuffle on your Zoom there earlier on, but no worries.
Okay.
So let's get to question number 1, and thanks for the people that joined in the chat. So first question comes from Boom Shaka. Boom Shaka says, let's see. Which grandmaster had the most influence on your chess career?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would have to say Garry Kasparov. My style is when you see the games, you'll know what I mean. The big difference between me and Kasparov, besides the rating, is he had an incredible depth of opening preparation. He was known for that. But the style he played was direct, aggressive, and if you've been following AlphaZero or how AlphaZero is playing nowadays, the AI engines, the way they are, let's say in quotes, thinking about chess and the way they are playing, I feel like Kasparov's style is the way that AlphaZero is playing. It's just playing it on a perfect level, better than Kasparov played. But I think he probably had a lot of influence. Mikhail Tal as well. But strangely enough, I would also say Karpov, even though my style is not Karpovian in some sense. His book, actually, I've got the book here next to me. Fantastic. This one here, it's an old book, Best of Karpov.
But
I tell you, you can learn a lot just looking through those games, right? And his style was not as dry, you could say, as one would think. You look at some of those games, and especially with White, he wasn't afraid to play the carries attack or whatever. He was a quite aggressive player. And then another one is Shirov.
Okay.
So here,
fire on the board.
Fire on the board, yeah, fire on the board.
Okay.
Of course, Shirov's style, I mean, Shirov's complete genius. I did see him playing in the Olympiad, of course. I did try and speak to him at one stage, but I didn't have a lot of success. I think he probably had just lost his game. He wasn't very happy, but I think those guys, there's kind of aggressive style, kind of suits suited my style in some sense.
Okay, interesting stuff, guys. Take notes and make sure you check out those players mentioned. Thanks, Gordon. Next question from Babiki. Babiki says, what is your favorite memory you have of chess?
Yes, funny enough, I think one of my favorite memories, I mean, I've got lots of memories, right? Probably two. Winning the Twins in 1986, the Johannesburg Open, I think was one of the highlights I have. I remember because it was such a strong tournament and I was such an outsider. I remember there were 22 players over 2,000 in that tournament, headed by Korestinsky and Rubery and all of these guys, Clyde Walpe and Stephen Pearson, all those players. And I kind of just had a good run. Like it's one of those ones where you just keep winning. And I drew against Rubery, and then the last round I had to win against Stephen Pearson with black. I played the dragon. He played the 11 fish, and I won. And so from out of the blue, I'd won that tournament, and it was a real surprise to myself and everyone else. The reason I remember it as well, because I'm actually a big Liverpool fan. In fact, I'm wearing a Liverpool shirt. I mean, that might turn a lot of people off. I'm not sure how many Man United fans we have. But that weekend, Liverpool won the FA Cup final as well. Okay. So I remember in my speech, I made I put chess and sport with tennis and football together.
Good.
So I have these memories. The other important memory I have, or good memory I have, was not me actually playing, but was actually, I think it was the 1983 SA Closed. The final bit, Mark Rubery and Donald McFarlane played in the last round, and McFarlane needed to win the tournament, but there was a half a point difference between them. And they played for 5 days or something. It was 193 moves. It's the longest game in chess. I think it was a world record at the time, but a proper classical game where McFarlane won a queen and pawn against queen ending. So that was an amazing memory, even though it wasn't me playing.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Wow. Okay. So thanks for that, Gordon. And let's move on to the next question. We have from King Ulster. King Ulster says, question for Gordon. Based on your students' personality, do you suggest exposing them to the contrasting approach or initially reinforcing the natural tendency?
No, that's a very good question. I think early on one needs to expose what the other side of the fence. But in parallel, I mean, it doesn't have to be one before the other. I think it's reinforcing. One can reinforce and expose at the same time, right? You can say, it's good that you've done this particular you've done this particular idea, but then there's this other idea that could also be as good. Maybe you want to think about that. Certainly I had students who had been trained in one way, and when I started teaching them, they thrived. It's like, wow, there's like this new world I hadn't seen before. And one student, Stephen Pohl, was one of my students, and he had been taught in a sort of a very passive way at one stage, and when I showed he just became one of the most aggressive players I've ever seen in his life. I mean, didn't necessarily suit him like totally, but he became so much more energetic and passionate about his game. So I think it's horses for courses. There's no, there's no personality plays a big part in chess, I think.
I think I really like your answer over there. Interesting stuff for the coaches to also take note of. Okay, and then another small question here from King Ulster. Does Gordon notate and analyze in German now, or still South African? Okay.
I annotate in English.
Okay.
I annotate in English, which that's actually a funny one, because sometimes one of the weaknesses I have is getting into time trouble, and so my score sheets become more and more illegible as I get to 40th move, which means when I hand them into the Bundesliga, they have to not only translate from English to German, but they also have to try and read these things. So a couple of my games online are actually incorrect. They've annotated them incorrectly. So yeah, but I still think I still think in English.
Okay, cool. And then the last question here from Hasi. Hasi says, by the way, early on he said that he's one of our latest followers. He says that Gordon plays for our club in Austria, SV Steyr. And also he mentions Gordon played to our team in the second league of Austria. He's the captain. Okay, and then the question that he has for you is, are you still playing to make FM?
I would like to. I mean, yes, I know Hazi very well. Gerald Hametner, his name is. He's a character.
Okay.
He's a character everyone knows him in Austria.
Okay.
Austrian chess. Yes, I would like to become 2300. Is achievable for me. I think I can get there. I have to put together some consistent run in the Bundesliga, and at the last couple of Bundesliga matches I haven't done that, so I need to get back to the books, and put a little bit more effort in. I would like to get to 2300. I think it's achievable before I get too old, right, and then start forgetting things. So thanks Hazi. So he's hoping that I bring his team up to to 2300. But yeah.
Super.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, welcome to Hazi and Austria to the show. Welcome, guys, everyone. So yeah, that's all for the chat. And now I am ready to switch over to the chessboard, Lennon.
Yep.
So let's do that. And now I shall just do my quick shift here with you two guys.
That's fine.
In the meantime,
you do that.
Can do
so
that.
Gordon, which game are we going to do first?
Oh, we'll do. I think we'll do the first one. Will be Andrew Muir against myself. The first one on the list.
So
Andrew Muir is
Tell us a bit about Andrew Muir.
So this was in a Four Nations Chess League, and Andrew Muir is a Scottish international master and Olympiad player. Very strong player. I think when I played him, he was close to 2400 at this game. So yeah, I think we'll have a look at that one first.
Sure.
It's a King's Indian.
Just tell us when you're ready, eh?
Yeah. All right, no problem. Almost there.
And it's played in the Four Nations, Gordon?
It's played in the Four Nations, yeah. Yeah, and so in the Four Nations, I did get a chance to play quite a few IMs.
Okay, guys, I'm good to go, by the way. Yeah.
Thanks, Calvin. Let's go over into lead chess immediately and make sure, Gordon, you're going to take us through the moves.
So just to confirm, Gordon, you've got the black pieces in this game. Which one are you looking at? The Muir game.
Muir game, yes.
The Andrew Muir, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Calvin can move the pieces, and I'll watch them move.
All right. Okay, so you can just stop me whenever or warn me if you want to give the viewers.
Yeah, so let's play the first few moves are a normal King's Indian. So this is where I say a bit of Kasparov influence was with the King's Indian, right?
Let me actually just switch over something here, guys. My volume settings I need to just put onto my headset. My Zoom is on that, but not my. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm back. Audio wise. Okay, so yeah,
standard, and then he plays the Samish variation, right? which is obviously pretty popular. In fact, Milanovic played it against me 2 weeks ago. But so yeah, let's play normal castles. And okay, so Milanovic played Bishop G5 against me. And actually, I remember, I'm sure Dr. Bawuddin also plays Bishop G5. I'm sure he played this.
I've seen him Bishop G5. Yes.
Yeah. So Bishop E3, okay. Maybe you can go back one move instead of Knight D7.
Yes.
Just go back here. A very common move here is also C5. It's very popular, where you sacrifice the pawn on C5. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Van der Nat plays 6C5 normally, because I normally play as white as Samish as well.
Yeah.
Okay. I've played this for white as well on the white side. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really want to. I wanted to play Knight D7 in this game.
Okay.
So let's just go back to Knight D7. Knight H3, and then I played C5, D5. Yeah, this is normal. and then I played, well, let's call it a novelty, h5.
Okay.
I'd call it probably a dubious. I've put a dubious against it, but okay, it is very interesting, and it also throws him out of his book preparation, right? But just carry on. I mean, it follows normal kind of lines from this point: Bishop E2, knight E5, knight E2, E6. So the point behind white playing H3, of course, is that he wants to play F4 at some point, so black can't get his knight onto G4. But then, you know, I've also got ideas of playing H4 myself. This is one of the reasons I played H5. I didn't play it in this case because you run into things like Bishop G5 and you lose the pawn often. So you have to be careful. So drawbacks of moving pawns early forward, right, is they can't move backwards. So
yeah.
The H5 pawn is committed. All right, but let's carry on. Some normal moves here.
Rook to E8, castle.
Rook E8, A6. Okay, standard black tries to break with B5 often in these kind of positions. Rook B8, yeah, and he played Rook B1, which I think is an interesting move and actually quite a strong move, I think, because the natural reaction would normally have been A5, I think, in that line, right?
Yes.
Where you normally you try and stop B5 playing, but Rook B, he played it very quickly, I remember, and I think this is probably more or less in his either preparation or he played this kind of position before.
Okay, interesting stuff.
Okay. Yeah,
so you went knight E7.
Yeah, so now I preempted these. You know, the knight's kind of done its work on E5, right? And now I can start regrouping. And in this game, there's quite a lot of regrouping happening. So knight B7. So it preempts in case he plays F4, rook E1, and then I think I played knight H7 in this position.
Knight H7, yes.
Yeah. So this is a good move, right? So often in the King's Indian, this is one of the ways you attack. You make space for your F5 pawn. And the advantage of playing H5 is to you can bring your knight back to H7 in a lot of lines.
Yes.
So knight H7, Queen C2, and then again the knight also moving out of F6 made space for the queen. Actually, the queen can come to H4.
Queen H4,
which is what I did now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to generate some play. I mean, this position is still advantageous for white. Generally, Samish white can hold an advantage for a fairly long time. But if you're a King's Indian player, what you're trying to do is kind of disrupt the harmony, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you're trying to mess around with his mind in some sense, right?
Yes.
So, okay, Queen H4. Now he played Queen D2. So he'd gone Queen C2 and Queen D2, but he's got ideas of trapping my queen on G5 in some lines, and yeah, I need to be careful. And now I played an interesting move, F5, which generates a lot of weaknesses on my pawn structure, and in fact, long term, it's kind of a sacrifice of the H5 pawn. But at the same time, it starts opening up lines. You know, he has to start thinking, taking a lot of time, trying to work out what's going on. And that's why when I play strong players like this, I don't know if you guys play squash, but I used to play a lot of squash. And when I watched the top players playing squash, every shot was a challenge, right? Every shot was like you had to do something. And somehow in this game, I feel like every move I'm trying to create something. The guy has to think, you know, like, why is he doing that? Why is he doing that? And some complications. And the computer prefers G5, by the way, in this position, and not F5.
Interesting.
And G5, actually, my position, it quite likes my position inside the computer. Well, but anyway, F5.
F5 is like the thematic King's Indian move. King's Indian players doesn't know what to do without it.
And of course, Gordon is actually threatening a rook takes bishop and bishop D4 in some lines.
In some lines, that's exactly right. Yeah.
So after
if he takes on
something like that, and bishop D4 at some point.
At some stage, because you still have to cover the E6 square or the E8 square, but I mean, fundamentally, those are then options for you.
Yep.
Yeah. It doesn't quite work in this position, and I can't 100% because I think he's got Queen E6 check after bishop D4.
Yes.
So that doesn't work now, but it is something he does need to keep in mind. Yeah.
Yes.
So okay. So now what he played F4. Yeah. So that was quite a good move. Okay, it stops this F4 idea. of mine, and also hits h5. So it's fairly thematic, and I would say a good move. I am under pressure. I mean, I need to play for tricks in some sense. So now I think I played. It took me a while to find this move, Rook E7, the next move.
Okay.
Okay.
The idea is, it's not obvious what my idea is at the moment, but long term, I could see that I might, if and when the B file opens, I might want to double up. And also there might be opportunities to hit G7 with my rook in some lines. So it's kind of a multi-purpose move.
Okay.
And another important thing I think in chess is overprotection. A lot of times when you're sort of aggressive and you can leave lots of pieces on pre, and actually the rook overprotects the knight and overprotects the bishop. There's a lot of lines where nasty sacrifices might happen, so you need to be aware of these things. Of course, I can also double up on the E file.
Commentators may say it's a mysterious rook move, though.
Mysterious rook move, yeah. I'm kind of well known for my mysterious rook moves, but they're not always good.
Yeah, you can definitely
so
see.
E7,
just hitting on that, London. You can definitely see the Kasparov that Gordon was mentioning earlier. Rook E7, mysterious rook move. So
Yes.
anyway,
Yes.
yeah.
Anyway, so yeah.
I like these kind of moves.
King
So
H2
he played King H2, which I think is a fairly logical move, yeah. And then I regrouped my other knights. Right? So there's one knight that's kind of in the way, and I want to make space for my bishop, for example. So I can connect the rooks, maybe with rook E8. Plus the knight might be able to jump to G6 and threaten some nasty things. So it's just freeing up my pieces a little bit. Another thing that Kasparov sort of talks about is, when you're attacked, you need all your forces. And you can't attack with like two pieces and hope that everything's going to work out for you. So you need to bring your reinforcements in. It's an important thing. Yes. Right. So knight F8, and then I think he played A5, which again, I mean, positionally he's playing quite well. This guy would expect so as a 2400. And now I played B5, which A5 is supposed to stop, right? But if I felt I actually needed to get some play down the B file. If he takes it, which he did, and he should, then I've got some chances now. You can see that rook on E7 gives me chances to double up on the B file later. Yeah, there are various complicated lines here, but the way the game goes, I think, is interesting. So he played G3, I think. Yes. Chases by queen away. I've only got one square. And then he played bishop takes H5. So he's doing all the right things, picking up a pawn. Decent position, but I came up with, I think, quite a creative, imaginative plan, and I like to think that AlphaZero was copying me in some sense. So first I played the next move. It might be another mysterious rook move for you, rook B8.
Yeah.
There are a lot of lines where I needed cover on the back rank. But also I can still double up on the B file, but also it frees up the pawn on C5. I can, in some lines, I can play C4. If he goes to knight D3, I can chase the knight away or something like that. And I can't do that with my rook on B6.
Yes.
So my rook was a little bit vulnerable. Also, he was threatening B4 in some lines, which, and I can't take it because my rook's on B6. So now he can't play B4. I'll just take it with the pawn. So I had to do that first. And then he played knight does play knight D3. So my AlphaZero concept is what I played next. Queen H6.
Okay.
The bishop. You went bishop F3. And then I went knight F6. So now I'm looking at this nice hole on E4. I'm also looking at G4 checks kind of thing.
Yep.
But I've got an extra idea in mind here after knight F6. He plays King G2, getting out of that check. That makes sense, yeah.
Yes.
And now I play knight E4. I jump in there, which is good. Computer likes it. Takes with the bishop, and take with the pawn, of course. So he couldn't take with the knight; he would have lost the piece. Knight F2, and now Queen H8. And this was my idea.
Ooh.
Getting the queen all the way to H8, which is a very, very rare idea, right?
I like
but,
it.
Yeah.
I've got a battery on b2 with my rook, bishop, and queen. I've got a battery on. I've got queen and bishop on h3. There's lots of ways that white can go wrong, basically.
Wow, yeah, you can see a lot of pressure on the diagonals and the files. So very interesting play. Very interesting play.
Yeah.
Just something to note. The black king has no pawns in front of him, and the white king has 3 pawns in front of him. But the white king is feeling the pressure. Interesting stuff. Okay.
The white king's feeling the pressure. Yes, exactly. So I like this idea of queen h6, queen h8. Now in this position, I believe white should have played g4. Even though it opens up his king, it's not an obvious move, but the computer suggests g4 here.
Okay, just to blunt the bishop.
Which I guess is quite... Yeah, I mean, I guess it's quite instructive in that even the computer thinks that his king isn't that safe. And so maybe it wants to block something. But anyway, he played rook e-c1, which is not it's not the best move, I would say. And then I played... what did I play now? I think I played knight g6.
Knight to g6, yeah.
Yeah, then he played rook c2. His idea was to protect this b2 point, but now I went rook b3, which I think is good. And suddenly white doesn't have a lot of moves. I've still got this threat of bringing the rook to b7. It's quite difficult for whites, I think, to play this and getting into time trouble. You can imagine this is move 32, so there's 8 moves left. I think he's starting to get into a bit of trouble.
Yes.
And now he plays a suboptimal move. It kind of panics, I think. He's worried about everything, so he played rook h1.
Okay.
Worrying about the b2. So maybe you want to stop here, and the viewers might want to think of a move here.
Yes,
if they can't see what the...
Good moment to ask the viewers. So can the viewers maybe give us a suggestion, guys? Black to play. Black to play. So this looks like a typical King's Indian stuff, because just chaos all over, messy and so on. So I'm sure any King's Indian player will be very happy.
Yeah. My games normally look like this. So I was quite used to it.
Okay, any suggestions, guys?
Yeah,
any suggestions from the chat box? Oh, Monster Frick suggests bishop to d4.
It's not a bad move. It's not a bad move, but I think there's better.
Question is, what is bishop d4 threatening, Monster Frick? Okay, the bishop looks nice. White can't take, but afterwards, not too sure what it would be threatening. But interesting move indeed. Interesting move. Fundi suggests rook takes b2. I think Fundi's onto something.
Fundi might have it.
Yes, so and Monster Frick just supports his theory with bishop d4 with to get to e4. To get e4 mobile. Oh, okay. So at some point, if white captures, yeah. Interesting idea, Monster Frick.
Yeah, that is not bad.
But Fundi has it, right, Gordon? I think you played the rook takes b2.
Yes, and now this diagonal battery plays its part, right?
Nice.
If he takes, I take the knight and I take the rook. So now it's not so easy for him. But it's not over. The game's not over by any means, because he can take on e4 with his knight.
Okay.
And now the best move, I think I played the best move, was rook b3. I don't want to swap off rooks.
Yes.
When you're attacking, you don't need to swap off, and that's an excellent rook attacking along the rank. If that bishop ever moves, you can see there's going to be trouble down near the king.
Yep.
And in some lines, you wanted to sacrifice the rook for the bishop, right?
Yes.
Now he did panic. He played in time trouble. He played g4, which the computer said earlier, but now it's actually a mistake.
So it's the timing.
Yeah, the timing is important, because now my knight is on g6. Before, I think it was on f8 when it suggested it. Now I can play knight h4 check, which doesn't look too threatening because he can play king g3. I mean, the king looks a little bit exposed there.
Yes, they're not the way you want to play it. But king h2, just to show the viewers, king h2 leaves that.
Yeah, nasty.
So, okay, king g3.
Now comes Monster Frick's move, bishop d4.
Uh-huh.
right? We're using that rook on b3. So he must play rook e1. And now I played another good move. I don't know if they want to guess again.
Any guesses from the chat box, guys? The next one is very, very interesting. Black to play. How do we continue the attack? So it's just all piece play.
And forks here, ne?
Istvan suggests knight f4 check. Okay, probably knight f5
Knight
is
f5.
what he means. So Istvan
yes.
is one of our viewers that he likes to challenge me on Challenge Day as well. He's always aggressive in mind. So
he's got the right mindset. That's the move.
Well done, Istvan. Knight f5 was played.
Pawn takes and bishop take. Just simply taking with a bishop, right? You're giving up a piece, but you've got so many threats. It's actually the computer puts us at something like -6 or -7.
Wow!
It really likes this move. But anyway, let's get to the end, because the end is a nice finish. King h2, rook takes knight. Okay, so yeah, it's very complicated. Rook takes e4, bishop takes d4, rook takes h3. This is where this rook comes in. Okay. That's why he needed that threat. King g2, rook check. I actually had bet. I could have won it quicker. I think the computer says queen h5 is quicker, but actually I think this is more beautiful what happened. Okay. So I'm happy I played this. Rook h2 check. Yes. King g1. King g1. Queen h4. Again, it was slightly better, but it's being a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Rook takes e4. Bishop takes e4. Rook c3 question mark. And then can you see the finish?
Rook c3. Okay. King Master mentioned the rook takes e4. Must be earlier on he mentioned that one. So yeah, any suggestions, guys, how the game ended?
Right, so people are thinking you're in South Africa, Gordon.
Yeah, that's good to get them thinking, right?
Okay, so I don't know if Fundi saw this game or not, but it looks like Fundi's on a roll here. Okay, Monster Frick suggests rook takes knight. Fundi suggests queen takes knight on f2, and Istvan suggests rook h1 check. So we've got a rook takes knight suggestion.
I'll take those in order. Rook takes knight also wins.
Oh, okay.
Rook h1 is not good because you can take with the knight and you've got a square on f2 to run away on.
So,
but queen takes knight is the most beautiful and most accurate.
And also played in the game. Wow.
And played, he takes the queen and rook h1 mate.
Yeah. So Gordon, it's a lovely mate and a lovely finish as well. And Gordon reminds me in 60 memorable games, Fisher mates carries, and they call this the swallowtail mate.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the king and the bishop and the king not having squares. Beautiful finish to the game. Well done.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. I myself have played the King's Indian as well for many years. Not anymore so much, but this is what you live for when you play the King's Indian. So great stuff.
Okay. Well, then hopefully you want some more.
Yes, definitely.
What we could jump to, if you want to see the game against James Plaskett, it wasn't my best game ever, but it was a win, right? And it wasn't too long. So if you want to jump to game 5.
Let's go to Plaskett.
Yeah.
Let's see who wants to be a millionaire.
Yeah, he wants to be a millionaire, 250K, that's right. I was white, and funny in those days, I was playing d4. It's quite interesting. I used to always play e4, and then I went through several years. I played d4, and then switched back to e4, and then tried c4, etc. Over time, you need to play different things, right? Yeah. You need to try different styles. So in this time, I was actually playing d4. Maybe it says I should go back to d4, right? But anyway.
Yes.
So let's go through it fairly quickly. I think d4 and f6. It was a Benoni.
Yep. c5, e5.
d5, g6, knight c3. Yes. So this is all kind of theory for quite a while. I'll tell you when the theory kind of stops. So knight d2. The idea behind knight d2, of course, is to come to c4 after exchanging on d5.
Just by the way, in the chat box, King was there saying, "Wow, beauty of a game." King locked himself in, and Fundi says, "Watched Gordon draw with King's Indian Defense versus GM Quinteros in '87, but this one is better." So Fundi
Okay, thank you.
has watched your games. Interesting stuff.
All
Thanks,
right.
Fundi. Okay, so
Very
CD,
Yeah.
at BD7 and F4. Interesting.
Yeah, as I was saying, Becca Edberg was on TV. I wanted to go and watch. I'm
Aha,
playing for
okay.
mate here. I'm either going to
Okay.
get mated or play for mate.
Okay.
So F4, yeah. Now C4 is theory. For those that don't know the Benoni, often you'd actually give up this pawn on C4 because you create a weakness on E4. Having said that, I took it anyway.
Bishop takes C4.
That's theory doesn't. This has obviously been played, but theory suggests that King H1 is a more accurate move in this position. But anyway, I mean, it's certainly playable. Bishop takes pawn.
Okay, so your opponent continues with knight c5.
Knight c5, yeah, of course. And naturally, I need to push, which is the correct
thematic thrust,
response.
Yeah, okay.
Thematic response, yeah. Takes, and rook takes. And now, okay, I've got a pass d pawn, but he's got a lot of play, right? And he's effectively he's going to try and mate me. But knight a3, and now he makes his blunder. Well, not a blunder. He thought it was, well, it looked like a blunder at the time. It certainly was a bad move.
Okay.
But it wasn't a critical mistake yet. So he played bishop g4. Better would have been rook h5 or rook e8 in this position. Rook h5 is interesting, and yeah, it's lots of attack. It's anyone's game, really. But it suits me to have this position against him.
Definitely.
So now, the move he missed here was the next move, queen d4.
Okay, so hitting the knight, unpinning.
Yeah, I'm forking the rook and the knight, and there's no easy way of actually. There's no, and I'm threatening the rook with the knight, right? So
yeah,
it looks painful. And it is, I mean, certainly it is painful, and it's good for white, clearly. But yes. It's not the end of the world. Of course, now he has to regroup. He has to think of some ideas, and he played rook h5, which is a good move. Clearly, I need to take the knight. Of course, it's a piece. No, rook c8 is correct. And now I go back to d4, and unfortunately, I have to kind of stay in this diagonal with the bishop. But okay.
Yeah.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Yep.
And now this is his mistake here. Queen c7 was a mistake. Now it's clearly better for white after this move.
Okay.
It looks scary. Yeah, it looks terrible, right? I mean, it looks very dangerous. He's threatening my bishop on c4, threatening h2. It looks dangerous, but actually he had a better move. He should have taken on f3 first. Computer says bishop takes f3, rook takes, queen c7, rook f4, and knight takes d5. Queen takes, rook takes, and knight takes. And it's better for white. But
you still need to kind of untangle the next couple of moves.
His queen is dangerous. It's tricky.
Okay.
But he instead of taking on f3 first, he went queen c7. He thought it didn't make a difference. He could go queen c7 first, but it does make a big difference, because now I go bishop e2. And when he takes my f3 knight, I can take with a bishop.
Okay, so he takes?
He doesn't, yeah. So he took. Oh yeah, now I can play d6. This is what he missed, right? There's risky in this position.
Okay, nice.
That's an important pawn he'd forgotten about there on d5. And now he's really in trouble.
Yeah, now it just looks fantastic. A clean piece up.
No, it's a clean piece, yeah. And the mop up was quite nice as well. Knight e8,
okay,
queen d3.
Rook takes h2.
Basically, yeah, he goes for it, right? It's just going for anything.
Okay.
King takes, queen check, king g1, bishop e5. Okay, it looks dangerous. He's still got mate threats. But I just calmly play rook d1. He takes on d6, and then bishop e3. Just develop. Knight f5. Still looks dangerous. Bishop f2. Queen h2 check, yeah. And now he hasn't got anything really. My bishops are just in time to stop everything. He plays rook e8, of course, which looks dangerous, but now I just play knight e4, which is correct. h5, rook ac1, g5, and queen d7, and now it's tickets. queen hitting everything. So he plays rook e6. I check him and then take on g5, and finally he threw in the towel.
I see. Yeah, it's the two more moves: queen h and then king e2.
Yeah, but because the bishop check doesn't mean anything because I just take the rook with the knight. So.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Now it looks quite clinical. I mean, like the way you just didn't get scared. I mean, when you're playing a GM any day and he's throwing the pawns up at you like that, it can be still a bit scary. You must have a bit of nerves.
No, you just have to be calm.
Nice.
And he's but he made a mistake. Let's face it, right? The queen c7 move, he'd missed the d6 idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think the bishop g4 was probably, he missed queen d4 completely.
Yeah. Yes. And maybe he'd like that put him in a bad frame of mind, and he hadn't adjusted himself to actually find the best line after that. But
okay, so you actually did nothing wrong. You actually just executed everything well.
I just had to play.
Well done.
So the next one I actually want to show you from a position. That's number 4.
Number 4, okay.
Now, if you thought the first game was kind of wild, this is completely wild, right?
Okay.
This is from a Bundesliga game. I'm black. It is also King's Indian.
Wow.
Where I don't have any pawns, right? It's like, and so I've got 2 queens, and we're on move 35-ish or something, both in desperate time trouble, with 30-second increment. We were playing on in 30 seconds. To play a position like this is virtually impossible.
Wow.
In time trouble. So he's got a rook, 2 bishops, 2 knights, and a queen threatening my king. But luckily it's my move. His last move was queen g5. He's threatening all sorts of mates all over the place.
So essentially he's got all the pieces on the board that you start with, except for the...
I've taken the rook with my queen. I got my pawn all the way to b2, and I took his rook for the queen. So it's my move. And actually, this position I can't save. With best play, white wins this position, even though it's my move. But I can make it really, really tricky, which I did. And I played in this move, in this position, if you play the move.
Okay. Rook takes
f6.
Okay.
Yeah. That causes all sorts of complications because I'm taking away his mate threat with a bishop. That was causing a lot of problems with queen h6, queen h mate.
Yes.
I'm also threatening to play my rook to h6 if in some lines, right? If he comes across.
And you're also exposing your own queen over there, f7.
Yes, I'm sacrificing my queen, but it opens up h1.
Yes.
For my other queen. So, which is what he did. He went bishop takes f7 now.
Okay.
Which is a mistake. He had a win. The computer says he had a win with e takes f6 here. And if you just play through the line, it's quite interesting. Because that would win, of course, for him. King h3, queen g1 check, and he goes knight g2, I think. And then I've run out of steam.
Yeah.
But there was also another line with queen h1 check. If you just go back a few moves. After this, if I play
queen c7 check.
Yes, queen c7 check. So this is probably what he was scared of, because this in time trouble you can't really calculate this very easily. Queen c7 check, rook f4, queen c2 check, knight g2, and now I actually don't have any defense.
Aha.
These queens, the queens are no good.
Wow. Okay.
So but to find this is really it's virtually impossible, right?
Yes.
So I took on f6, so he went bishop takes f7, which also looks good. It also looks winning. But I go queen h1 check. King g2, king g3, and then queen g1 check, and he thought rook g2 is winning now, right?
Okay.
But what do I play now? How do I save this?
Wow.
It's a crazy game.
Yeah, I know.
It looks lost. And my knights are on the side of the board, like doing nothing.
Okay, I had some idea getting the b6 rook into the game. I initially thought that maybe queen g2, knight g2, and rook f7 try and get rook g6 in, but not enough time, I'm assuming, for that. But it could be something in that line.
It's very, very it's an amazing position, I think.
Monster Frick in the chat also suggests queen takes g2, but I think the follow-up is necessary. What after that, guys? Queen g2, sacking the queen for the rook, but what's the idea afterwards? Yeah, I think I just missed something elementary there. Yet.
You see it now?
Yeah.
Well, it's not obvious that there's a weak square in white's position.
King Ulster is suggesting queen e1 check. Does queen e1 do anything?
The problem with queen e1, he plays king h2, and I've got no more checks.
Yeah, the king is nice and snug on h2, actually.
He's got mate threats on g7, g8. There's lots of mate threats.
Yeah. Fundi, always sharp as always, says queen g2, knight g2, and rook g6.
Beautiful.
Aha.
That's it.
And punning.
Because the knight is not protecting g6 anymore, even though it looks like so many pieces are on g6. If you take queen g2, knight g2, so let's play the moves. Rook g6 is now. I can actually play it, and I end up a piece up.
Wow. Okay. So wait, is this now after sacrificing both your queens?
Yeah, sacking both my queens. Yeah, and both rooks.
Wow. Okay.
So, rook g6. He must go. He went queen g6.
Yes.
King g6 and knight h4 check. Now, still, this is a very interesting endgame.
Technicalities left over here.
I'm now a piece up, but I want to get to if you play through these moves quite fast, I want to get to a certain position, which is very instructive. So White's plan was simply to sacrifice his knight for the pawn.
Yes.
That was his plan, because he just said, well, two knights can't beat the king. I didn't play this the most accurately, but anyway, let's just carry on with this. So now he's got his idea, right? But I'm taking this check. And he goes king e4, of course, and he offers me a draw, and I decline, and I play knight d5.
Nice.
And two knights against pawn is very, very rare, right, in your life, if you ever get in such a position.
Yeah. I think I've seen one of these, maybe where Sergei Karyakin had to do some perfect play, but this is I'm excited to see this technique.
Yes. So the two knights, it is a draw unless the pawn is on d4 or e4, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it's f3, g4, or h5. There's like a pattern of pawns, an arrow, I think, that the pawn has to be blocked by for it to be a win.
Okay.
Having said that, it's a very difficult win.
And by the way, explaining this theory to us, did you know that theory during this game?
No, I knew it before, like when I'd coached, and I'd forgotten it by the time, because this is a long game. There's like, can you imagine that position we had earlier, 6 hours exhausted? And I unfortunately, if you just play a few more moves, you will see where I went wrong. But I want to show you how to do it now. Okay. So king f, these all moves are okay. Knight f4, and then I played knight d2 and messed around with my knights and eventually drew. Okay. Question mark. But if you move, the correct move here is knight d6. And the way you win this position is you put your two knights behind the pawn, and the knights block off all of those squares, right? Which is quite amazing how many squares, if you think about it, that those knights block off. Sure. And then you maneuver your king and the backward knight you move his king around to the edge. And you use that in combination at the right time, bringing the knight in or blocking as you need to. And there are some long mates and there's some short mates. And the one I've just put in the line here is the one that the computer shows is the quickest line. So I just want to show you that. I mean, white has got different defenses, but let's just have a look at one of the lines. So the way the king and the knight work together to block off the king is instructive.
Okay, finally the other knight joins.
Finally, it brings up, and you've got enough time. That's why the pawn needs to be on d4 or behind, because you need enough time before he queens. So he starts pushing. But his king is trapped now, you see. And king h1, and you mate him in time.
Okay, so just for the viewers out there, the reason why we don't capture the pawn, I mean, if the pawn is off the board, this would be stalemate. So that pawn is critical for the win. So,
you need your opponent to have the pawn, otherwise it's a draw. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a pretty one. That's a pretty one, very pretty.
Yes, and if you go back to the position where the two knights are behind each other with
Okay.
the circles, there are different ways. If white runs to the other side of the board, then you force him down all the way to A8 and mate him there.
Okay.
Because those knights cover so many, he has to march down the A file, with your king following him. Can't stop it. So.
Oh, okay. I get it. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
So beautifully illustrated. Gordon, this is the first time that I've actually seen such an illustration. So, Calvin and I are definitely going to put this one in the archives for making sure that we can show, because this illustration is very important for the viewers and ourselves as well.
And just for the geometry of everything, it looks beautiful. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure David Freegood will appreciate that.
Yeah, to get this position from that crazy position that we had before was like
it's from extreme tactical play to extreme technical play.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know how you're doing for time. If you want to have a look at another game,
I've got enough time. London, can we do another one?
Yeah. I think we're going to go till 8:45 tonight, Gordon. So we still got about 15 minutes.
Okay.
All right, let's go to game 3, which I think is a nice miniature, and it's quite theoretical. I was right. It does follow theory for quite a while. An Anand Karpov game, actually. So it was against the Karakan, and in this game I played the advanced variation.
Okay.
It can be a very aggressive line. If you play this knight c3,
C3 line, yes,
e6 and g4, which Shirov loves to play.
Yes, indeed.
He loves to play this line. So the idea is, if you haven't seen this before, it looks a bit crazy, but the idea is to bring the knight out and eventually capture that strong white squared bishop. So black's white squared bishop is at the moment his strongest piece, and you kind of go out of your way to take it off.
Yes.
Right, so knight e2, knight e7, knight f4,
c5.
c5. This is all theory.
Theory, yeah.
h4 and takes, knight b5. So the idea when he takes on d4, you don't just go take with the queen because he hits you with knight c6. You go knight b5, and note that you don't have to worry about queen a5 check because you just play like bishop d2 or c3. Your knight is protected by the bishop on f1. So that knight's it's coming into a handy square on d6 if he's not careful. So his move is probably forced, I think, in this position. He has to play knight ec6 so the bishop can stop the knight. But at the same time, it hits e5, so it's a good move.
Yep.
h5. So I'm picking up the piece now, bishop e4. So this line, black has to sacrifice a piece. f3. Takes, knight e5. Actually, on this move, I thought for about 20 minutes. It wasn't clear to me where I should put my queen. There's a lot of squares. There's queen b3, there's d1, e2, g2, everything. But eventually I settled on g3 with the idea, with the diagonal. The threat down the diagonal, there's lots of tricks down on c7. I'm hitting his knight on e5.
He goes knight bc6?
Yes. And I think this is possibly where, this is where we deviated from Anand Karpov.
Okay. So
Anand played
knight
and the computer suggests knight d3 in this position,
Yes.
Which looks like a good move to me. But I thought c3 was even a better move, which is what I played.
Okay.
There's all sorts of nasty things happening. I had an idea here which I don't think is sound, but I did like it.
Okay.
He took on c3,
okay,
and then I played my idea was to forget about that pawn and play h6.
Okay, so you're inviting him to take on b2 as well and just develop your pieces for you.
Kind of throw him into disarray because if he does take on b2, I've got this b2 h8 diagonal, and this pawn on h6 has disrupted his pawn structure. So it's very, very tricky position. Lots of tactics here.
I'm sensing a theme here, Gordon. I don't see pawns in front of your king usually. It's just open. So yes,
sometimes
interesting stuff. So h6.
All right, so pawn at h6. So he actually took it, I think.
He played queen a5. with
Yes,
a huge
which
threat
is
of
good.
of CB.
Yes, and I think I just ignored him.
I think you
Oh, no,
captured over there.
I took it. I took it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he
now
captured on
took
H6.
on H6. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I
Okay.
played the knight D3. So I've kind of got that idea, but a bit later
Okay.
in the game. But I think disrupting his pawns on the king side was good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. The computer, of course, would probably make a mockery of it, but to me, it looks interesting.
Definitely tension. Yeah.
Knight C4. Okay, which is not too bad if he plays correctly. Okay, knight C7 check, because he thought I can't move my knight away. Or at least, I mean, if I go rook chasing like I have here, then he's got queen C3 check, and there's my rook on A1 is hanging, and there's lots of nasty mates happening here.
Yeah.
Well, not mates, but threats.
Yeah.
But I calculated, I think, accurately anyway, and I played knight C7. Now he made a blunder. It's not an obvious blunder, but he played king D7. He should have played king D8.
Okay.
You will see why
Okay, let's see.
in a moment.
Right.
King D7, knight takes rook, queen takes pawn, check. King D1. I wasn't worried about this. And then he played what looked like an obvious move, bishop D6. The first move people think about is because you want to stop queen C7 check, right?
Yes. And you're hitting the knight.
And you're hitting the knight, yeah. But it loses. Why does it lose?
Whew. Yeah, this is again a tactical, a very tactical situation. Okay, Dr. Queenie's got it. Thank you to Giles me for following. Dr. Queenie is saying knight C5. She's spotted that the queen is hanging.
The queen's hanging. Yes.
So knight C5.
Knight C5 resigns.
And resigns. Okay. So yeah, and so I guess that's why you said the king's better on D8 actually, so that there's
so king. If you go to the king
check.
D8 line, it's also interesting because there's nothing clear going on here. If he plays king D8, I think I've put that. Yeah, it's an exclamation mark. I still take. He goes queen C3 check, king D1, queen takes A1. Sorry, bishop D6 now. Okay.
Yes. Now you have a check.
And now there probably would be a repetition. All right, it with bishop E7, queen G3, probably a repetition. It's the same thing. But if you go to the other line, instead of bishop D6, if he goes queen takes A1,
okay,
that's also an interesting
line. Queen takes A1, where are we now? Oh, okay, so it's showed like this, and then queen takes A1 here.
Yeah, then I've got queen C7, queen C7 check, it's a nice finish. King E8, queen B7, knight D8, well, these moves aren't necessarily forced. Then bishop G5, sorry, bishop G5, and the computer says this is equal, but it's very crazy, right? It's hard to read. But there was another line there, I think, with if you go to the queen takes A1 line, instead of bishop D6.
Instead of bishop D6, yeah. So queen A1 over there.
Yes, then queen C7 check.
King E8.
Yeah. King E8 and then queen C8 check.
C8.
Knight D8.
D8.
Knight C7 check. King E7. And then this is winning. Can't remember why. Oh, knight F4. I think it's just knight F4.
Knight F4.
Oh no, it can't be knight F4. I think you've got the. Can you go down to move 20? I think
20.
Near the bottom there's a queen A8 check.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. That. Instead of bishop D6 over here, we go queen A1. Okay, I was actually wondering why that line wasn't there. Okay, queen A1 here. Then the line shows king E8 check, knight D8 check, king E7, knight F4 yes. Queen B4 check.
Yeah, no, I think we've got the right. Bishop D3. Oh yes.
Knight D6.
Knight D6.
Queen takes knight.
That's right. Yes. Yeah, this is the nice finish.
Okay.
Queen takes, and then you fork the queen. And
okay.
I've forgotten all my lines.
Interesting stuff there, Gordon. Brilliant game over there. Yeah, I like what I've seen. I like, so I mean, I can definitely see the what you've mentioned with Kasparov and Tal. Them, I see the influence. So interesting and entertaining games. Well played.
Thank you.
And I see King After says that you must remove all pawns in front of your king for better vision of the vantage points.
Yeah. Who needs pawns, right?
Yeah. Let's have a look at the last one, Gordon, that you've got in the
Okay.
Okay, so
that's
which one
game
is
number
this?
2.
Game number 2.
Game number 2.
Okay.
This is actually against an international. This is one of the Austrian Olympiad players.
Okay.
This was actually a more normal game, but actually quite strategical. So we'll play through it quite fast. E4, E4, D6, and now E5.
Okay.
So often when you're playing a very stronger player, they won't mind going into a queen ending. I mean, I could take and swap off queens, and then he'd try and outplay me basically in an endgame.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to go for it. You know me.
You want to keep the pieces on the board, yeah? Definitely.
Knight BD7, A4, Bishop E7, Bishop C4, yeah, castles, Knight B6, Bishop 8, Bishop E3, yeah, probably Bishop A2 is better, but anyway,
Maybe,
taking with a queen, yeah, because he's knights on B6 and he can't go to C6. I thought I could take with a queen now, right, and actually have a bit more influence in the game. A5, H3, kind of normal moves. Knight FD7, Rook D1. Another point of moving the queen was to move the rook into the middle.
Knight C5. Now you have to go Bishop A2. Okay.
Yeah, which is, I could have probably saved the move earlier. Bishop A2, Bishop E6, Bishop E3, just develop the pieces. Yeah, I'd take with the rook. I mean, it's a decent, this is the critical position. So Black's done well out of the opening. He's solid, he's no weaknesses. And he's a good player. I didn't really want to get ground down in a long game. So I thought, let's mix it up a bit. And I played, which I knew, a move that weakens on my pawn structure, but it does make him think like what's going on. So I played B4.
Okay, interesting move.
Yeah, so it kind of makes it a little bit more tactical.
Yes.
Takes, Knight BD7. Now Knight D4 is aiming for F5. If I get to F5, this is Kasparov's knight on F5. He loves these things. I mean, it's a great attacking piece if you can get a knight on F5. So I think he has to play what he did.
G6.
With G6. And then I actually brought knight to the other side of the board.
Okay.
Threatening his knight on C5.
G7.
Oh, yes. I think, and this is, again, I think this is an interesting, very interesting move. Because it's a move that no one would have expected, especially my opponent. And yeah, I like this move. It's again, the computer doesn't necessarily agree with me. It's 100% accurate, but I'm not playing a computer, right? I'm playing a human.
Yes.
And after my move, which I played H4, he lost a lot of time. And he got into big time trouble in this game.
Nice.
Because yeah, I mean, if you take it, you run into problems with E5 hitting the bishop. And from the queen, you know, one of the things people don't see very easily are lateral queen threats, and that's not such an easy thing to handle. I mean, these knight on C5 is now vulnerable.
Yes.
If I take on D6, so there's nothing. Yeah, I don't think the computer suggests he take it either. But yeah, I had to calculate all of these things. Of course. So H4, he played Rook F8, which looks like a decent move.
And on we go.
On we go. Yeah, why not? H5.
H5.
Bishop 8. And then I like this idea. Bishop F4, followed by the next move after knight E5, Bishop G3. This E5, this idea of putting the bishop on this diagonal, because then I can play F4 later with the bishop hitting D6, is dangerous. The bishop was actually really dangerous, more dangerous on that diagonal than it was in E3.
Okay. Nice shuffling there of the bishop.
Yeah.
Knight A6.
And now knight A6, I think, was a mistake. He's starting to lose the thread. He's putting his knights on the side.
Yeah.
So queen D4, bishop G7, I think, and then queen D2. So I've got my queen now into a decent position. I'm also hitting H6.
Yes.
Which I used. So he went queen D8, and I hit H6 now. Bishop H8. And then...
Play on both sides.
Now I'm playing both sides, yeah, like Adekine. So A5. And then he played knight B4, which the computer doesn't like that one so much. But I liked it because actually you'll see some lovely knight positions here.
Okay.
So C5, Rook A4 is good enough. C5, I'm hit. Now he has to create these weaknesses on B5 and D5 to protect the knight. Otherwise, he would have had to move the knight back.
Yeah.
And now I go knight to B5. So if you have a look at these knights, now he goes to knight to c4.
Sure.
These knights, so they're doing a dance together. These two knights and knight to dice. I play queen e2, and then he puts his knight on b2.
Wow.
So all of
Okay.
these
Okay.
knights are together. But actually, that wasn't a great move because I hit on d6 now.
Yes.
And he thought getting 2 rooks for the queen would have been good, but actually it wasn't so good. Because now I play queen c4, and actually that's a very strong move. I'm hitting f7, I'm hitting c5, and I'm hitting knight d6 is a threat as well.
Yeah. And the knights on the black knights at least are feeling a bit out of play over there.
Feeling out of play. So he played, I mean, it basically is losing, but he played bishop. Now I can play my idea with f4, which is what I wanted to do, and I put on bishop on g3. Bishop f6, e5, bishop e7, knight d6. It takes, and then queen b5. He resigned in this position. I'm hitting the knight and the rook. Basically his position is collapsing.
Yeah, nice creative play over there with h4, h5. I like it. That just unsettled him a bit as well.
Yeah.
But I get the impression, Gordon, that I mean you enjoy going for concepts and illustrating them if you have the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think chess isn't a game of one move at a time. Chess is a game of 2 or 3 moves at a time. And yeah, if you have these little 2 or 3 move concepts like I had with bishop f4, bishop g3, f4, that's like it's like a packaged idea you have, right?
Yeah.
Or you have these idea, okay, I'm going to push the pawn. I'm going to get the pawn to h6 eventually, but okay, that's my little plan there.
Well, I think Gordon and Calvin from my side, Gordon, besides the reflections, Calvin and I sometimes do something called London lectures. So we're going to have to invite you for a London lecture where you come and give some lectures to us, Gordon. So really, it's great that you have had these type of games because they're very creative. And I mean, that's what players need to understand, that chess is not only about the tactics. You've got to actually find a strategy as well and then go for it. So well done, and thanks for illustrating those games.
Brilliant
stuff. Been a pleasure.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna switch back over to the interview side, guys, and let's just go there now. And yeah, just from my side, Gordon, it's been absolutely fantastic meeting you and discovering also some of your games. Yeah, I think I'm going to have a bit more of a look at your games on the Mega Base, whatever I can find. Definitely exciting play. Hopefully I'll see a bit more of this. I'm sure not every game is like this, but very interesting. And thanks so much for taking out your time to join us here this evening. So
it's been a pleasure, and I think you guys are doing a great innovation, great job, and inviting the old guys is also, we feel like we may have been forgotten one time, but we're not, right?
No,
we're back in it.
And Gordon, that's why this is called the Reflection Show, because we reflect on our players and on the times gone by, and of course on the games. And I mean, you've I think Calvin, Gordon now has the record for showing us the most positions in the Reflection Show as well. So well done to you. Gordon, from my side, thank you for agreeing to come on the show. Any final words for the viewers out there before we start to end tonight's show?
I think, I think chess is a great game, isn't it? And it's something you can take with you for your whole life. It helps you in your private life as well as over the board. You learn about yourself, I think.
Yeah.
So keep playing, don't hold back, keep studying. There's always something to learn. There's always someone better. There's always new ways of looking at things. So yeah, I think I'd like to end it that way.
No, Gordon, Gordon, thank you very much. Although there's one question, Calvin, I see I've made a note of, but I never asked. Gordon, 3 books that you would recommend to the viewers out there, because I have to ask this question. I've asked everybody. So you must tell me any top 3 books that you think that you would like to endorse.
I think Shiro's Fire on Board, definitely. Yeah. I would say Karpov's Best Games.
Yeah.
And it depends on what you like, but probably Fighting Chess by Kasparov.
Yeah.
Or Kramnik's My Life and Games. Slightly different style, but but brilliant chess.
No, thanks. Look, Calvin, some new books here, because normally we have the normal My System and other types here.
Yes,
But I'm
yes.
glad to see Fire on the Board and Karpov. I mean, that Markland book is one of my first ones. And I can tell you, Maxwell and Kenny Sullivan also had that book at the Helmut Mitchell's plane. And then Fighting Chess, of course, a late 80s, early 90s book. And then Kramnik, I mean, you just got to study Kramnik. I mean, the world champion that dethroned Garry Kasparov in 2000 with his Berlin and all the others, Slav and these things. But I mean, Gordon, so thanks for those recommendations. Gordon, before you go, we're just going to announce next week's guest. Calvin, may I go ahead?
You can let us know, London, who are we having on the show next week?
So I'm pleased to report that we're having also a former South African champion as well as Olympiad player, Jonathan Gluckman, will be our guest next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And we look forward to welcoming Jonathan, and he will come tell us a bit about winning the South African Open titles as well as playing in the Olympiad for South Africa, and I'm sure showing us some aggressive games as well. So Gordon, thank you very much, and Calvin, thank you to you, and then hopefully we'll see you then next Tuesday at 7. Thanks, Gordon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Cheers,
everybody.
good evening.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.